topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Triversity Talk. I'm your host, Wendy Stewart, and it sure is a sizzling day out here today. My goodness, if you're in the tri-state area and you're listening to this broadcast, you know that we're getting hit by a heat wave. And I have to share with you what happened to me. The room that I broadcast from, the air conditioning it died on like last night. So I'm doing the best I can here. I have my little fan and I have a bar of dry ice. That's right. And I come from the Bronx and we call that Bronx air conditioning. Yay. But anyway, I don't know what your Pride plans are, but we are now in our Pride countdown. Tonight, of course, I'm broadcasting from New York City, but as you all know, Triversity Talk represents our Triversity Center in Milford, Pennsylvania, which services the tri-state area. In New York, there's a gazillion things going on for Pride. Friday night, I made a get-together at Stonewall with all of my friends, which was really, really, I feel so blessed a lot of the time that all of the places, the landmarks that you hear about, that I'm lucky enough to get to go to. So speaking of lucky enough, a very dear friend of mine who's been on the show, Jed Ryan, reached out to me and said, he said, I heard this talk from these two authors and you really have to have them on your show. And long story short, okay, the author of the book, My Sister, by Selena, Leyva, and Marizol Leyva, I have it right here, How One Sibling's Transition Changed Us Both. The book actually just arrived yesterday, even though I ordered it like a week and a half ago, and I haven't been able to put it down. So I am absolutely thrilled tonight to welcome my guest, who is Afro-Latina transgender author, a model, a cook, a creative, a music artist, and most of all, and most importantly, an activist from the Bronx. Please welcome Marizol Leyva.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here. And here's your book.
Yes, thank you for having me. What a beautiful sight.
This is so great. So great. Your book looks good on camera. Some books, if they have a shiny cover, you can't even see the title or anything. So I'm holding this up.
Yes.
And I want people to order it. Okay. They can find your book on Amazon. And is your book in the Drama Bookshop as well?
It's in all platforms, all bookstores. You can find it even in Target.
It's in Target, yay! We are Target shoppers on this show, and we you know what? We love Target. Target has good sales and bargains. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule and everything that you do for coming on the show. So I just started, as you know, I was talking before the show with you. I'm only up to page 53 because I couldn't put it down. And we started with your childhood. So I missed everything that brought you into the gorgeous person before me right now. And I'm so thrilled to have you. So you grew up in the Bronx.
I sure did. I grew up in the Bronx, in the northern section called Norwood, on Bainbridge.
Bainbridge Avenue. Bainbridge Avenue, baby.
Yeah. Shout out to Bainbridge.
Shout out.
And, I grew up in a neighborhood that it was predominantly, it was very diverse.
Yeah.
You had a little bit of everything. it was considered like the nice section of the Bronx. And it was just nice to grow up in a community where it was just diverse and a little bit of everything. I have friends to this day that I grew up with in the neighborhood.
That are still your friends. Wow, good for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's great. They're still your friends and they have your back.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the house that you were raised in that neighborhood, you had you come from a big family.
I do. It's we have a big family. I can remember like growing up, there was always family over during, like from Thursday to the end of the weekend. Because our home was like where all the hostings would happen, all the parties would happen there. And you know, I'm a Latina, so our background is all about dancing and the food and the drinking. So there was a lot of that going on. So we did have a big family, and then once you got older, like you start getting tired of the parties and
And the relatives and the whole
right,
thing.
right. Then everything is left onto you. But now it's just like my siblings, my mother, you know, like immediate families, because you know sometimes people just scatter and they move around, and we don't have the same relations that we used to have.
Well,
But
yeah, the whole growing up that you had in your book, by the way, I really loved reading about it, that closeness, the relatives coming over. And then your mom also took care of neighborhood kids, right? She did like a
yes,
care, right?
yes, she did. She was a foster mother. She made a promise, because when we grew up very religious, the Catholic Church, and my dad as well. And they made a promise to God. They said, because my little brother, my big brother, he was battling cancer at a very young age.
Right.
He was very, very small, tiny, like could fit in my mom's palm of her hand.
They didn't think he was going to make it. Like in that part of the book, he was in the hospital a very long time.
Yes.
And it's a miracle. It really is
Yes,
a miracle.
it's a miracle, and they made a promise to God that if they help him get through this and make him survive, that they would take care of children if they would grant this wish for them. And here we are today. Him and his wife complete 20 years of marriage. So
Wow, isn't
you
that
know it's
something?
very possible. You just have to believe.
You just have to believe. But you can't seem like you came from such a supportive background.
Yes. I'm
Now,
very lucky to have a family that comes with love and acceptance. Of
right,
course, it didn't happen one day to the next, right? Because I want people to understand that like it's a journey. It's also a transition for our family members, our siblings, and it definitely takes time. And it's when you look back at it, it was I wouldn't trade it anyway because we've been able to learn from each other,
right, right.
and you know that is priceless.
Well, I know, like in the book, you mentioned you loved doing your sister's hair, and she loved having you do her hair, but you had to hide that from your father, right?
Yeah.
So, Latino men, that whole machismo thing. What was that like for you?
Um, it was almost like living a double life because it was like when the men were around, it was almost like, okay, it's time to bring it down. You know
You
what I
had to
mean?
be
Like
right.
get back into character. Like that's not what you're supposed to be doing. But when they were not around, I was allowed to do those things. You know, like my mother and my sister shield me with allowing me to do those things because they saw the joy that it brought me.
Right. Well, it seems like you know, you come from a Catholic family, but that they were very accepting. Not that Catholic people are not accepting, but you know, things like transition, gay, any of it in a strict Catholic family is always a challenge for the person that's growing up in that family. It's interesting on this show. I've had so many people from Catholic backgrounds, and
Mhm.
you're very lucky because you know you're still with your family. You know, I don't have to tell you, there's a lot of people,
Yes.
especially in the transgender community. My God, that my friend Simone, who listens to the show all the time, and who's an amazing, Simone Krause is an incredible speaker on a transgender journey and transgender issues. And she talks a lot about chosen family. I think you
Mhm.
were very lucky, Marizol, that, you know, you had this family behind you.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you know, So when you get into the book, you're gonna get deeper into the book, because at one point I had to find chosen family as well. But the good thing about it is, like, the grateful part about it is that I still had them, right? Like, I still had my family there to support me, even with the decisions that I've made in the past. We were still able to rekindle, and build a relationship again. So I got to experience both sides of, like, what that looks like for someone who may be under the LGBT umbrella, because there's some that don't have support, and then there's some that get disowned because of religious beliefs, and because their parents don't condone any of that stuff. And so, being that I left at the age of 17, going into 18, I had to, build a chosen family of support, right? And throughout that journey, there were friends that helped me, that let me stay in their, under their roof, and let me sleep on their couch, because at one point I really had a steady home. You know what I mean?
So you did have some chosen family then along the way.
Yes,
These were your
yes.
friends.
And through those experiences, I learned what it felt like, what it feels like, what it looked like when someone isn't that supportive of you, or because a lot of these people that I had the opportunity to get to know didn't have support from their family members, and they would share their stories with me. And there were times where I missed Christmas and Thanksgivings and all the holidays the same way they would. And we will be breaking bread together, celebrating together, where I used to stay at the shelter.
Wow.
So it really opens my eyes, and the experience that, LGBTQIA members experience when they don't have family support or love or acceptance. It's important.
Well, yeah. So, being that I didn't get to read the whole book, it'd be great if you could take me through some of this. So you went to a shelter when you were 17?
Yeah, so not necessarily directly into 17. Like, I remember being asked to, like, I was being told, like, these are some options, you can go to a shelter. But my thing was, like, I'm not doing that.
Right.
I'm scared to do that. Like, I was really afraid of doing that, because, like,
Of course. Did your parents ask you to leave at one point? Is that how did this come about?
No, they did not ask me to leave. It was not under their control because of what I did. It was not under control over the the court system.
Okay.
So, being that there was an investigation being involved in stuff, I couldn't be home. So it was never about, like, oh, you're leaving home because you're trans. No.
It was never that.
It was never that. It was, I was at a place that it was, like, a very dark place, and I was just in my rebellious stage of, like, I found myself.
Right.
And now I'm just, like, ready to take over the world. And I really didn't even know what that looked like. You know what I mean? Like, until I realized, like, okay, this is not what it seems like. There's some obstacles here. And those obstacles were being discriminated against, trying to find work, or being harassed in the streets, being assaulted just because you are just living and existing. And for some reason that bothers someone else. And so those experiences led me to just like understanding the world, but understanding how resilient you can be in these particular moments, right? Because I've learned that you can't let people opinions and feelings towards you affect you or define you. Because if you let that happen, you will get into a place where your mental health is not going to be all that great, right? Because you're letting people define you, and the best way you can show courage and resilience is standing truthful to who you are authentically, and know that you have support, right? Because people are often scared to, like, come out or to live in their truth because of how the world sees us.
Well, how the world will view you. Exactly.
Yeah. So I would want people to just live their truth authentically, because there is a community behind that will support you and uplift you.
When did you come to this realization? Because I'm going to backtrack a little, right? many kids go through the rebellious teen stage, right?
Yeah.
Some run away, they steal, they do all kinds of things. Okay. I call it testing the waters. All right. And you're testing your identity at the time too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're trans, you're really like giving your identity a run for its money, because now is really, when you get out of your house, it's the first time you can really live your truth.
Yeah.
It's going to be very difficult, you know, doing that at home with your family, or even in your own neighborhood.
Yeah,
Because,
I was excited about that.
yeah.
As heartbroken and sad I was about that, because there was something in me, because it was like growing up, I was always told, "Oh, you're gonna be gay. You're gay. You're gay. You're feminist," and that. Then I got to the point that I started to believe, because growing up, I never really understood what trans meant. I just saw what the representation they gave us on like the Maury's and the
Well, you know,
Jerry's.
the gay category is the first category. It's the easiest category for
Exactly.
a lot of people to, you know, to deal with. Okay, you have these mannerisms, you act this way, you're gay.
Exactly.
But
And so
now,
I heard
right.
that my entire life, from not just from some family members, but also like in school, like navigating through school and stuff, and the children, and just like always teasing me about it. And it got to the point that like, I guess I'm gay, because then like I'm like, I come at 16, I'm coming out as gay. And you know, I remember my sister asking me, "Do you want to be a woman?" And so when she asked me that, I felt kind of close. I wanted to say yes to her, but I felt kind of close, because I'm like, I didn't want to be judged because of what I would see on TV. And
Right.
is this what she's going to think about me? Right. So I was in a place where I'm still finding myself at 16. At this point, I'm familiar with trans, and I've met someone who was trans that at first I didn't know. And the way we connected was just so beautiful, because I feel like it was just meant to be. She was put on a path to show me that, no, we're outside, we're here, we exist. And I'm a prime example of that. And it's so funny, because I gravitated to her from the very beginning. And I didn't really, without even knowing, didn't understand why. And then one day, I talk about it in the book, where we all like gather up together at the village, at the famous Chinese store before you meet the pier. And we were just hanging out and discussing our sexualities and genders, and just like disclosing and just feeling free. You know, this is a place of like feeling free and getting out of your neighborhood.
Well, feeling
or,
like you fit too. It's
right,
like,
where you fit in,
yeah,
and
you
leaving
fit.
your home, like your comfort zone. This was the place where you can be yourself, and you don't have to worry about it. And so
Right.
everyone was just living and just like all out. And she then mentioned, you know, everyone's going around just like mentioning who they are and stuff like that. And then it goes to her, and then everybody, like, the response was like, surprise, like, oh my God, like, what? I can't believe it. And, you know, and I'm just, what's going on? Like, I don't understand what, like, what's happening. She's what? She's transgender? Like, what does that mean? Like, you know, like, so then she broke it
Well,
down.
that's
And I'm like,
interesting that was such a biggie of a thing, right? Because I basically grew up in New York. I know where you're talking about, by the pier and everything.
yeah.
There's a ton of transgender people down there. I
Yes.
mean, you know, so it's interesting. Maybe it was because y'all were so young at 16.
Oh, we were so young, and a lot of us, this was our first time in the village.
Right.
This was like my first time.
Your
You
first
know,
time, yeah.
and so many of the other kids too, because we were all the same age as well, and we're all trying to figure out
Who you are.
a lot of them didn't have support from family. They were just own. Some of them were like living with other people. um yeah, it's crazy that I, like, now just thinking back on it, like, we're probably like 20 years in from that, and it's just like how times have changed.
Yeah, that's what I'm like while we're talking. Like, did you see the movie The Stroll? Do you know what The Stroll is?
Yes, oh my God, such
So
a
my
beautiful
friends were
film.
Egypt, Labeja, and a bunch of other my friends that are still alive, right?
Yes.
Were in that film. And even from when they talk about the early days, right, down at the pier, which is even way before you, right, the 70s and 80s, it was like a whole other thing. And, you know, when Egypt talks about those times, and I just know Egypt, we've done shows together, and I can't believe things were like that, what she describes in those days, you know, because it's so different now. It's really so different now. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's so different, but yet it's just as treacherous. There's a huge number of transgender women that are murdered every year. You
Yes.
know, right. And you know, that's why we have Transgender Day of Remembrance. Wouldn't it be great if we could move past that? You know, we call it Transgender Day of Honor, maybe. The reason we have to have this Remembrance Day is this is what's happened and this is what's still happening. And it's really scary to me with the kind of bills that the amount of anti-trans in the last couple of years. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's very wicked what's happening. You know, I can never grasp to understand how, you know, this country will want to take our basic human rights.
Like
Just
what? Excuse me. Why bother? Why would you objectify? Go after people. Do things that are so cruel, like the states that are banning hormones. Really, that's like taking insulin
yeah, they
away
just
from
passed a law.
diabetic. It's absolutely horrific and terrible. And you want to say to those people, what's in your heart? Is your heart so dark that you have to go after other people that way? I mean, I
Yeah.
have to be honest with you, it's quite unbelievable to me because I've been around decades and I thought we moved past all that stuff. And we absolutely haven't.
It's
Somebody
like
sent
when
me
the
an
sun.
article. Someone
Yeah.
sent me an article today about I'm sure you're familiar what's happened with transgender athletes, right?
Yes.
A high
Yeah.
school kid who was on a basketball team who got outed in Florida. Her mother actually worked in the school too. I think she's a teacher in the school. And then now the mother's job is being threatened, right? And the mother had to take the kid out of the school and homeschool her.
Wow.
That is so wrong. And this was a child that, you know, was going to the school where most people had no idea. Okay, that's her business, really. And now she's got to be homeschooled and the mother may lose her job. And not to mention all those things aside, the absolute mental stress that the child and the family has been.
Yeah.
Why? You know, what
Unbelievable.
is the point?
Yeah. It's
You know,
almost like they don't want us to live our lives. Like it's like, oh, we're not allowed to go to school authentically like ourselves. And it's just like you're stripping this child away from her education because of who she identifies. That's really messed up. I think that a lot of the times when it comes to these political views, and I try not to get into the political stuff too much, but I feel like it has come to a point where like they're using us as a scapegoat to pretty much just like demise like what they're doing and what's going on in their side, because a lot of the things they're be doing, it's never really addressed, right? And when we talk about the children, and without me getting really deeply into it, they never really address those things. And you can bring up the church and all those things, and then they try to use us as like we're these type of human beings who are out here hurting people, and you know, that's not happening. You know, they're using us to just like kind of like point the finger when we're just happy. We're happy people just living like.
You know, exactly. It's like, to me, it's like a crazy point. Okay. It's like taking all the people that have red hair in the United States of America and pointing a finger at them and say, oh no, that's wrong. They're all redheads. They're, you know, and objectifying them because of it.
Right.
It's just, it really is completely wrong. So, I mean, as an activist, what do you think can be done to turn this around? You personally?
I think one of the things that we can do to turn this around is that people need to start becoming more active with their voices. If you have trans friends, siblings, colleagues, you know, community members, whatever that looks like, please show up for us. Speak up.
Thank you.
Because like the voice does not only come from inside the house, it comes from outside of the house as well. Because when you really look at a culture wise, like LGBT has contributed to the culture itself when it comes to fashion, music, entertainment.
Oh my God, it's everything.
It's everywhere. And so all we ask is that you give us the decency of respect and human rights, and that when you know something is wrong and what's right is wrong, stand on it.
Yeah.
Right? Stand on it. We're living in times where we can voice our opinions, we can speak up, and you know, it's okay to do that. I think that sometimes people are scared to speak up. Because of what,
People are sheepish, sheepies,
yes,
and they are afraid to speak up because they're afraid about how they're going to be judged by other people.
absolutely,
You know,
absolutely. And
but
I think the more we share stories, the more like this is why I'm so happy to see like members and allies like shows like yourself, Triversity Talk, and other podcasts and other movements that are really just sharing stories because it's important so people can really understand that this is not what you think it is, but here are the stories for you to really understand the intersectionalities of our experiences.
oh, oh, believe me, I am completely about sharing that out there. And in terms of the transgender community, any chance I get it, and if someone, of course, is an activist or has some kind of platform they're trying to promote, I'm right there because it's going to be your words, right? Our words that get out there and change minds.
Mhm.
So you decided. I want to know: did you or your sister decide to write the book, or was it a collaboration? Like, what happened? What was the catalyst to
So
make this book
it's
happen?
so funny because I literally like I want like as I'm living life as a young teenager and all these experiences, I'm like, oh my God, my life is like a book. And who knew that me saying this over and over in my mind with all these different obstacles that I went, that I was manifesting that, right? Which is just like subconsciously having it, just having the thought lingering there, like, oh my God, like my life is like a freaking book because all these things that were just occurring, it's just like, you know, it's not what the average, not I wouldn't say the average, but it's not what someone else most likely will experience because there is an experience with transness. It's all about it comes with how the people treat you, how they discriminate you, and a
Right.
lot of us are experiencing that. And so my sister came to me, she's on the hit show Orange is the New Black, right? It's kicked off. You have a show with so many amazing backgrounds of women and
Right. And
culture.
let's just applaud your sister for a minute.
Yes,
That's right,
yes.
because she went to LaGuardia High School, performing arts. And, in the book, she talks about how a lot of the time she felt ostracized, right? Didn't fit in. And I mean, look, look at where she is. That is
Yes.
success. That is such
Yes.
a hit
Shout
show.
out to my sister. So she came to me. She has built this amazing career for herself, and this show that's is such a hit. And now she has like a platform. People are listening. People want to hear from her.
Yes.
The conversation with transness has started. Shout out to Laverne Cox for doing that, right? Because she was
Well,
the
yeah,
first.
but right. Laverne was the originator of it. And I mean, let's just once again thumbs up to that show for putting people out there in a way that hadn't been done before.
Haven't been done before. Exactly, exactly. I could just remember the day when I saw, like, I obviously knew about the show, and my sister talked to me about it before it came out. And I could just remember thinking to myself, like, oh my God, this is like history being made right
It
now. Like,
is.
history is going to be made. This is going to start a conversation that I always dreamed about of like just seeing trans people being able to fill in these spaces that often you wouldn't see them be filling those spaces up. And to see Laverne Cox on this hit show and being a series
Absolutely.
regular, not having to play the prostitute, not having to play the one that got unalived because she was trans or because she didn't disclose she was trans. These narratives that they pull and run with when that's not really the actuality that's happening in our lives in
Right.
reality. And so my sister came to me and she's like, hey, like, so she was inspired by an article that was run on Vanity Fair for,
Vanity Fair article. Okay.
yes, that it was done for Caitlyn Jenner.
Okay.
And so the way the article was being discussed about her was like it was almost like glamorizing the trans experience.
Oh my God.
That
Okay. First of all, thank you for bringing that up. Okay. Because in Vanity Fair around the same time and in billboards, they were doing advertising. I think it was Gap did a whole campaign, right?
yeah.
And they made everyone, all these trans couples, oh, they're gorgeous. Look at them. Isn't that exotic? Isn't that great? And I thought this is such BS. Okay. That's
Mhm.
awful. That really is just taking and using a person and once again pointing the finger for their own selfish reasons.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And one of those things is I'm so sorry, I got a brain brush. Brain
I
fart.
love you. You're so fun. Just enjoy it. No, we were talking about how Vanity Fair was glamorized.
Right.
It's
Like
okay. I'm a good listener.
so many things just came out to me at once because it's like so many intersectionalities in that conversation itself when it comes to the glamorization of trans people.
You're the first person, by the way, that ever brought this up on the show, and it's really been a pet peeve of mine. Every time I open up like Harper's Bazaar, and they write like trans model, why can we not just put model? Why are we doing that? Why do we have to have that label there?
It's called capitalism.
Yeah, you're right. Right. No, you're exactly right. The reason they all started doing it is to sell magazines.
Yeah, that's right, Clippy.
Oh, look how cool we are. We have trans models in our magazines. Oh, we have trans models on our runways.
Right. I get it. I get that's part of the business, but there's also a way how to do it too, especially when it comes to our experience, right? Because often it's our experience are being told by cisgender people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It is. That's exactly right.
Or these articles are being written by cisgender people that don't even have an ounce of what it's like to be a trans person, or what those experiences are, or what it feels like, or the right questions to even ask. Because sometimes they will just ask questions that are inappropriate. You know?
Oh, I have found when I've been in groups, and even when people ask me, because I'm like a translator sometimes. The stuff they ask about what's going on, I'll be frank, between someone's legs. Why on earth would you what has that got to do with anything at all on the face of the earth? You're right. Completely inappropriate. But if we don't get out there and start working with people's language, right, by educating them, and you have to do it in a kind way. By the way, Marizol, you have to.
Yes, I've learned that. Because we're from the Bronx, so you know how we give it up.
No, I know, but I've learned. Like, I was getting into an argument with this guy one night at a party. He was Israeli, and he's like, but I don't understand. He kept saying, I don't understand. And I remember looking at him, and I said to him, well, maybe you need to read more. And then I walked away, and I thought, you know what, Wendy, you're a real a-hole, because I have had to learn. All right, because I surround myself with people that are similar to me.
Yeah.
But that's not what the world is. And you're a speaker, Marizol, so you need to be able to go out there and find the right language when you come across all the a-holes that ask the bad questions. And leave them with something.
Language matters. And I've learned like with this advocacy work and like educating others and just teaching people about my experience as a trans woman and just sharing my experience. With that comes learning, right? But at the same time, like I before I would be more combative and like I would get triggered, and I realized that like the reality is that some of these people just really don't know. You know, they really
the reality, they don't. I mean, a lot of them just don't know. So
and so I had to like, kind of refrain from like, okay, they just don't know. Let's bring it down, and let's move with a little bit more grace, right? Kind of take the Bronx out of me, because usually I'm like all in your face about it, like, you know what I mean? My tone of voice would change.
No, I hear you.
But if you want to to anyone out there that's listening, like if you want to communicate with someone and have understanding to you, do it in a way where you're moving with grace and love and understanding.
Thank you.
Because sometimes if we do move with a tone that can be perceived as like offensive or, aggressive, people are going to take that as a defense mechanism, as to like, now they feel defense to what you're saying to them, and they're not going to receive the information. People receive the information
because you shut them down. You've shut right. That's what I did with that guy that night. I just completely shut him down, and that's not what that wasn't an accomplishment. Okay, it's not what I'm trying to do. But you know what? You live and you learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think a lot of our conversation has been about being an adult and being trans, right? So the huge growing population of small children, of which you were once a small child, that are actually trans, okay, and whose parents are supporting those kids. So I've gotten into this with people. They're like, well, I don't think that's right or whatever. And I'm like, I've been around some of those children, and and you were one of those children. You completely identified with quote unquote the female things, right?
Mm-hmm.
The clothes, the dolls, all of it. If your kid is doing that, you get behind your kid. And now I have to say, I've met a lot of parents that really are, and I think that's a really good thing.
Absolutely.
It with, again, I'm talking small children. I'm talking like, like when you were 3 or 4 and
Mm-hmm.
you had a sister with Barbies in a blue and white bag. I remember that in I'm like, oh, a blue and white Barbie bag. Yes.
Yes, the old school blue and red bag. Remember with the stripes?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And all those Barbies were in there, and you couldn't wait to play with them, The problem is, in society, people will turn around and say, well, you can't call it in a 3 or a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, but I have to tell you, I beg to differ with them.
I agree.
For the most part, not a phase. And it's not a phase. And the sooner, like in school, that we can start expanding the way we think and teach in the classroom and are supportive, the better it will be for children to have that positive experience. And then of course you get into the whole thing with, and again, I don't know what you were like at 13, but there's a whole hormone blocker thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked about this with people. They're like, that's really wrong, deciding that the kid should, take a drug, right? A hormone. I'm like, well, which is wrong, right? If you identify female and that holds back the male characteristics that start happening, like you don't want to start growing a beard, getting a lower voice, any of those characteristics. If those hormones can stop that from happening, because being a teen, as you know, is hard enough, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So if you can get support for your child in that way, and then the kid is 18 and is looking at themselves in a positive way, and then can decide what they want to do next. But you know what? I've gotten a lot of harsh disagreement from people that, I don't know. This is still Brave New World territory, unfortunately.
Yes. Yes. And what I think about that is that, when it comes to someone else's body, right, especially them being trans, I don't think that it's okay for people to comment on things, especially when it comes to someone's parenting, on what they should do or what they shouldn't do. Because one, you don't understand what it means to be trans when it comes from a biology science standpoint. Right. A lot of people can't tell you that because they just don't know. They're following the trajectory of the narrative of what they've heard, what they've been told, and what they've been taught.
That's exactly right.
So I would want people to actually sit back, calm themselves, and maybe do some research, ask people around, get more familiar with the community, and try to be more understanding and warm up to the idea of something that you have been because I believe people are confused about it, but then you can't be confused about something and then speak so cold-heartedly about something that you know nothing about, and then you're saying that that's what it is.
Oh, excuse me, but that social media really empowers you to do that. You go on a social media, the things that I've read on, the anti-gay sites, and it's just really, really terrible. Yeah. Absolutely awful. Listen, you're what we call an ambassador, right? Or a speaker. If you're going to be a person that's going to make a difference. So tell me about your 5-year plan.
My 5-year plan. Oh my goodness. So I definitely see myself having another second book. This book would be totally, completely different. It would be a cooking book. I love to cook as well.
You do love to cook.
Yes, I love cooking.
Oh my God, cooking horrifies me, but that's okay. We're talking. So you enjoy. You want to do your next book about what's a pleasure for you.
Yeah, something that's a pleasure to me, something that has also been very therapeutic as well in my journey of finding myself and bringing me zen and peace and just allowing me to create and bring it into reality, that just brings me so much warmth, and it just brings me life and peace. So, I want to share that with the world, that you can be able to find those things in cooking and creating something that you're gonna end up eating at the end, right? And you're gonna enjoy, whether it's for yourself, your loved ones, hosting. It's all about bringing people coming
Well,
together.
it's about love, okay? But here you said it, that brings you together, and then you're going to eat it at the end, and that's where it falls apart for me. It's like all of this. So if I make something, let's just say I make an object, a piece of pottery, right? I want
Right.
to be able to stick it on a shelf and see it at the end. If I write a book, I want to be able to have that book out there. All right, I
Yeah.
have a product, a book, but something you just said it, the thing that you put all this time into, right? And everyone's excited about it, and you're showing love and bringing people together, but then you eat it and it's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's one of my plans for my 5-year plans. Also going with my music, being on the billboards. I am a Latino artist.
I
Um,
Yeah, so I want to talk about your music and being on billboards and that part of your life, which I don't know anything about other than there was a little bit about it in your bio.
yes. So I've been doing music for the past 4 years. The moment I started writing our book and going to the studio to record our audio, because it's also available in audio in our voices.
So your book is, if it, that's very important because I know people that like driving and listening to books.
Absolutely, exactly, exactly. And the book is also available in Spanish for the Spanish readers out there.
Right.
And so, around that time, I was a streamer, and very popular streamer on this app called Live Me. Shout out to Live Me. And I would go on there, and it was just kind of like my escape of like things, and just connecting with people and just sharing stories. And I'm 420 friendly, so we would do a lot of 420, and we would do freestyles. And this was just a way of just having fun, right? Like, this wasn't
Right.
something that I was thinking about, like, oh, I want to do music. I'm just having fun. I'm entertaining my audience. And so this became like an ongoing thing. It became consistent. Like, people were enjoying it. So I'm like, okay, this is gonna be like the niche for the lives when I go on live. And so we continued doing that, and everybody, like, the responses that I was getting was just like, are you guys,
Positive.
they were so positive that I was like, oh my God, like, do I have something that I never knew about? And then people are just telling me about it now, because I'm just having fun with it. I didn't think anything of it, right? And so during my process of writing the book, like, I'm in therapy as well. I put myself in therapy because I was living a lot of moments that I've never really like took on and faced on face to face with. And so I knew that I had to get on therapy when I started writing this book. And so one of the things that I learned was just like coping mechanism, finding other ways that can find fulfillment and your just ease your minds of whatever those thoughts you're having. And so one of the things that I've admired from music artists is just like writing their pain, their hurts, their,
Absolutely.
and I was like, you know what, here I am writing a book. Why don't I write a song? And then the voices from the lives telling me, girl, you should pursue music. Oh my God, I thought you did music. So I'm like, let's try something out here. Because that night, I remember calling the suicide hotline because I was going through it. Okay. I was up to the part of my book where I was discussing the relationship that I was in with my ex-boyfriend. And, it was very toxic, abusive. And I was just like reliving all of that all over again. And during the writing process, I was still living in the apartment that all of this happened in.
Well, and this was all coming. You made it reality again, and I'm so glad you're talking about that because doing a book, right, brings that up. It makes you go deep in yourself and go to
Yes,
those painful places, and you did it.
yes, 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 yes. This book has been life changing. It has been so healing for me, life saving as well, because
No, I get that,
I
right?
really didn't have the tools on how to like speak on the things that have like hurt me and express my feelings in a way that are like healing, and to be able to hear myself say it, right? um and also just writing it also is a different form of just like reliving it as well. So I remember that night was like really tough for me, but I was not giving up. I was not allowing those feelings and emotions that I would use to allow get the best of me and then turn into things that were unhealthy habits.
Right.
Right. So I said, no, we're going to do something here that's positive. We're going to take this for this negative situation. We're going to turn it into a positive. And I said, let me write this song. I wrote the song. I recorded it on my phone. I got on the app and I performed it for them and they loved it. They loved it. And I also felt good that moment when I wrote that song because I was no longer feeling how I felt in the beginning.
Right,
So that
because you were inspired and you did something for you. All right. You know, I mean, you're talking about a lot of stuff. When you do a book like this, and again, I told you I connected with your book immediately and couldn't put it down. And I'll have it done by, I'll be up reading it again tonight. It's the honesty, the fact that you can be that honest and share the inner things about yourself with strangers. Strangers are going to hear the audiobook. Strangers are going to read this book. Okay, it takes a lot of
actually to what you just said right now. It goes back to like the reason why we did this book, right? Because when my sister came to me, she was like, hey, this article doesn't sit well with me because she knows me. She has a trans sister. She's seen the experiences I share with her a lot.
And good for her, by the way.
Yes, shout out to my sister. We need a lot like my sisters, whether it's a brother, father. We need you to be this way because when it comes to family, a lot of us need our families. We need the support and the love, and please show up for your brothers or sisters.
You know what I think is really cool, because she is an actress, because she's in the media, and I've always believed this. If you're in the media, you can make change. Okay,
absolutely.
You can.
Well, the thing is, you have a responsibility as an artist.
You. Right.
To make change when you are, impacting groups of peoples and communities with your work, and which is why I do what I do. And I chose to do what I do because I've lived an experience where I always will be like, one day I would like to just really tell the world what it's really like, not this idea of what you think it's like for us trans people.
Right.
So when she came over, she's like, what do you think about us doing a book together? And I had to think about it. I wasn't like all right away, like, yes, let's go for it. My instant reaction was like, oh my God, this is great. I thought about this growing up with all these different experiences I was going, because I would always say my life is like a book. But there was a side of me that was like, oh my God, this is scary. Like,
oh yeah, my gosh, of course, because you're putting like your innermost truth, and then you know what? Not everybody puts themselves on the cover. Okay, the two of you on the I really we have them. This is great. I love the cover.
Thank you.
Paul, on your part.
The photographer, by the way, I have to shout out the photographer by B Wolf. His name is B Wolf. He was an amazing photographer. He captured us.
Is it Diwa?
I'm sorry?
Spell his name, please.
I would have to send it to you because his name is kind of hard to spell.
Is it Diwa? Is that who you said?
No, B Wolf.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to know. But this is not only a beautiful picture, but the cover with the colors that you chose on this, that it's going to make somebody grab it. There's a ton of books out there, and a lot of them have super pretty covers. But when I didn't really look at the cover when I ordered it from Amazon, and then when it got here, I'm like, oh, this would be a book if it were sitting somewhere. I would grab it. And it's so honest that both of you putting your pictures on there. It's
Thank you so much. We were inspired by the Barack Obama memoir.
Yes.
With her cover. So we kind of wanted to go for like a vibe like that, where it was just like poised and elegant and classy.
And beautiful. And oh my God, we have 1 minute left. I didn't know where the time went.
Oh my God, we can continue talking. We
could continue. Yeah, I could talk to you forever. So people can find your book everywhere. And what else do you want to tell people?
Being that it's Pride Month, happy Pride Month to everyone. for those who are still figuring themselves out, I want you to know that you have a community behind you who stands with you, who loves you, and who will uplift you. To those who are confused about understanding who we are, I give you grace to just be understanding and be more loving, and let's move more with being more empathetic with one another and
Thank you.
respectful with one another. And yeah, love wins.
And in the end, love wins. I always take a picture. Hold the book up. Just don't cover your face with it, okay? I always take a picture at the end. Beautiful. Yeah, you're perfect. You are a cover girl. Look at you, got it. You hold it up a little
That's part
higher.
of my 5-year
Hold it up
dream.
one more time. I just want to get it. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Marizol. Thank you. And thank you
so
for
much,
writing this
Wendy.
book. Happy Pride to you. And you know, have an
shout
amazing
out to
year
Chad.
ahead.
Shout out to your friend Chad. Also, Chad, love you so much.
Jed Ryan, we love you. Yes. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.